Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we're going to create a brand new Unreal Engine project, and we're going to add our plugin for multiplayer sessions so that our project will work with online Steam sessions right out of the box. This will make it easier for us to test our project across the internet in a real multiplayer session. Let's get started. Our first step will be to create a brand new project. So we're going to open up our Epic Games launcher and go to the library. We're using Unreal Engine 5 for this, and at the time of filming, the latest version is Early Access 2. You're going to use the latest version available, so we can simply launch Unreal Engine 5. Now we're going to select Games, and we're going to be creating everything from scratch, so we can select Blank rather than using one of the templates provided. Now we need to select a destination for our project. I'm going to stick mine here and click Select Folder. And for the name of this project, I'm going to call it Blaster. Now this will be a C++ project, so I'm selecting C++ and I'm going to click Create. So I have my blank project, and it's not really blank. We have this level that's not exactly empty. We have a floor and some other objects, but for the most part, this project is pretty bare bones. Now, if you're new to Unreal Engine 5 and you're coming from, say, Unreal Engine 4, you're probably wondering where the content browser is. And you can bring it up by clicking on Content Drawer, and you can also show and hide it with Control Space. Now, if you prefer to have this docked to the bottom here, you can click Dock in Layout, and now you have your content browser. Now, when I develop, I like to have the output log, so I'm going to go to Window and check Output Log, just so I can have that tab there as well. Now, if you don't see the Place Actors panel, you can go to Window and check Place Actors. This can be useful for bringing in commonly used actors when creating a level. Now, we have a blank project, and we'd like to be able to test this project through Steam sessions in real multiplayer. Now that's okay if you skip the first section on creating the multiplayer plugin. You can download the plugin. The link will be in the resources for this video, and we're going to add that plugin to this project in this video. So our next step is to add our plugin to our project. Now here's my project folder, and I've downloaded the plugin here, so I'm going to go ahead and extract it. And I'm left with this plugins folder. And if I open it, I see plugins, and inside of that, multiplayer sessions, that's our plugin. And inside of that, we have some more folders, including a .u plugin and a source folder that contains some C++. Now, I'm going to take this plugins folder, and I need the plugins folder that has multiplayer sessions directly inside of it here. So I'm going to take this plugins folder, and I'm going to simply drag it over to my project. Now, I don't want it inside any of these other folders. Don't drag it into content or anything like that. Just keep it here at the project level. That's where we want it. Now, if you're bringing this into some other project that already has a plugins folder, maybe you've added some plugins of your own, then you would simply take that multiplayer sessions folder and stick it right into your plugins folder. And now we have our multiplayer sessions plugin here in our project. Now, in order to configure this project for multiplayer, we need to follow several steps. And I've outlined those steps in a PDF, which you can find in the resources for this lecture. So you can refer back to that if you plan on doing this again with some other project. So let's go through those steps. The first thing we need to do is enable the Online Subsystem Steam plugin. And to do that, we can go to Edit and Plugins. And here in the Plugins editor, we can search for Online Subsystem Steam. And here's the Online Subsystem Steam plugin. We're going to check Enabled, and Unreal tells us we need to restart for this change to take effect. So we can restart now. I'm going to select that. Now it's going to ask me if I'd like to build the modules for multiplayer sessions. I'm going to click Yes. And now Unreal has restarted, and our Online Subsystem Steam plugin is enabled. Now we're going to need to change a couple of our config files. So let's go back to our project folder here, and go into the config folder. Notice we have a few .inis. The first thing we need to do is open default-engine.ini. We need to add a few things here. Now, Unreal Engine has some documentation for enabling Steam in an Unreal Engine project. I'll provide this link in the resources. We need to scroll down to where we see Finished Settings, and we see that these are some settings we need to add to our default-engine.ini. Now, when you go back and take that first section of this course where we actually create this plugin, I explain what these things mean. To use the plugin, all we need to do is copy these and add them to our default-engine.ini. So highlight these and copy them, and down here in our default-engine.ini, go ahead and paste them in. So we're going to save this and close it. Now, another change we should make is going to be in our default-game.ini. In this folder, we're going to add a section in square brackets and type /script/engine.gamesession. And here under this section, we're going to type max players equals 100. Now, we're going to be able to configure how many players can join our game session, but this setting will cap our project overall, and the default value is 16. So if we don't set this to 100 here, then when we set our number of public connections for players to join our game, if that value is over 16, we'll be capped out at 16. So this is a way to set the max players for our project overall. Go ahead and hit Save and close that. Okay, so we've added some config settings. Let's go back to our Visual Studio project and build the solution with Build Solution or Control-Shift-B. Now we're going to close Visual Studio and regenerate our project files. This means we need to close Unreal Engine as well. So let's close that out, and we're going to delete our saved, our intermediate, and our binaries folders. Now we'd like to generate Visual Studio project files for our plugin as well. So go into Plugins and Multiplayer Sessions and delete binaries and intermediate for this as well. And come back out, right-click on Blaster, and generate Visual Studio project files. It's asking me for the Unreal Engine version, and I'm using 5, so I'm going to click OK. Now that that's finished, we can double-click our U project, and it's asking if I'd like to rebuild modules for Blaster, that's my overall project, and Multiplayer Sessions, that's the plugin. So let's click Yes. So Unreal has opened up. I'm going to minimize that, and I'm going to open my Visual Studio project solution. And after generating Visual Studio project files, I now see my plugins folder here, and I can expand the dropdown and see multiplayer sessions. Further expanding dropdowns, I have a source folder and multiplayer sessions inside of that, and then I have public and private folders. And here we have some C++ files. Multiplayer Sessions subsystem contains all of the code for creating game sessions, and menu.cpp and .h is a user widget included in this plugin. And this allows us to have a menu widget ready to use so we don't have to create one. So I'm going to close up the plugins folder and hop back over to the Unreal Editor. Now here in Unreal Engine, we can't see it, but our plugin is here in our project. To show it, we can go to the Settings button here and click Show Plugin Content. And now we can see our Multiplayer Sessions plugin folders. We have a Content folder, and in this folder we have a widget blueprint. If I double-click it, we'll see that it's really basic. It has a Host and a Join button, and these buttons have some text on top of them as well. You can click on the graph and see that this is completely empty. All of the logic is in C++. And if you click Class Settings, you'll see that the parent class is Menu, and that's the C++ class in our Multiplayer Sessions subsystem plugin that we just added. So let's close that. So now we have our plugin. Now our WBP menu widget can be added to the viewport simply from the level blueprint. So let's click on Blueprints and open Level Blueprint. And here from Begin Play, we're going to call Create Widget. And for the class, we can select WBP Menu. And this menu widget has a Blueprint callable function called menu setup. And you can see here that this is configured to have a number of public connections. That's the number of players that are allowed to join this game session across the internet, as well as a type of match and a lobby path. This path will be whichever level we have in our project that we designate to be our lobby. Now, it's set to this default value, but this being a blank project, we don't have this folder or this map called lobby. So we're going to create a lobby level. I'm going to compile that and come back to this opening level. And I'm first going to save this level. So let's make a maps folder. I'm going to click on Content, New Folder, and create a maps folder. Now I'm going to go to File, Save Current Level As, and select Maps. And we can call this simply Game Startup Map. And save. This will be the map that our game opens up to. Let's go to Edit and Project Settings and make sure that's the case. We can click on Maps and Modes, and for the Editor Startup Map, we can choose Game Startup Map, and for Game Default Map, we'll choose Game Startup Map. Now I'm going to close that, and now we need our lobby level. So let's go to File, New Level, and select Default. And we can save this as Lobby. So let's go to File, Save Current Level As, and here in the Maps folder, we'll call this Lobby. And click Save. Now let's go back to Game Startup Map and go back to the level Blueprint. And here in the menu setup function, we need to supply the path to the lobby. So I'm going to use game/maps/lobby. Now, when you do the first section where we create this plugin, you'll see how this works. The menu setup function takes this path and sets that as the lobby level that we'll travel to when we create or join a session. Now, if we click play, we see that we have this menu widget added to the viewport. That's also handled in the menu setup function. And if we click host, we'll host a game session. And if we click join, we'll search for any game sessions that exist and join one if there is one. Now, we can't use Steam sessions in the play-in editor or in the Pi here. We have to actually package the game to create and join Steam sessions. So this game startup map is mostly going to be used when we package and test our game, which we're going to be doing frequently throughout this course because it's important to package your game frequently to make sure it still packages without errors and to test your game across the actual internet. Now, if you're using Unreal Engine Preview 2 or Unreal Engine 5.0, the latest official release, there might be a change that you need to make to the plugin. Now, you can go into your Solution Explorer, and here under Blaster, you have a Plugins folder. And if you select Plugins and open Multiplayer Sessions Source, Multiplayer Sessions Private, you should get to these three classes, and you can open Multiplayer Sessions Subsystem and search for this part here inside of the Create Session function. For Preview 2 or Unreal Engine 5.0, the latest official release, you'll have to add a line to this. And the line that you should add is last session settings use lobbies if available equals true. So if you're on Preview 2 or Unreal Engine 5.0, the latest official release, make sure to add this line to multiplayer sessions subsystem.cpp and go ahead and compile your code. And after you've compiled, close out of Visual Studio, close the editor, and go back to your project and go into plugins and multiplayer sessions. And from there, delete your binaries and delete your intermediate folders. Then go back out, right-click on your .u project and generate Visual Studio project files. So that way, those changes that you made to your plugin code will take effect. So if you have issues finding and joining sessions once we try, that's what you're going to try to do if you're using Preview 2 or Unreal Engine 5.0, the latest official release. And another thing you should check is your config folder, open defaultengine.ini, and go down to Online Subsystem Steam. Now, if you copied your code from documentation, you might have this, but if you're using Preview 2 or Unreal Engine 5.0, the latest official release, you should replace these two lines with just binit server on client equals true. That will allow you to create sessions. So on Preview 2 or Unreal Engine 5.0, the latest official release, make that change, make the change to the plugin code, delete your intermediate and binaries in the plugins folder here in multiplayer sessions, and generate Visual Studio project files, and then you should be able to connect. Now, before we package the game, let's go to Edit and Project Settings and search for Maps to Include, and we'll see under Packaging, List of Maps to Include in a Packaged Build. Now we can plus to add something to this, and I'd like to add /game/maps/lobby, or wherever you put your lobby level. And we can also add our game startup map. So game/maps/game startup map. Now this will ensure that when we package a build, that it will also package these maps in the build. So make sure you add all the maps in your game to this list of maps, and make sure that you put their paths correctly. Everything up to and including content is replaced with game, and then place the folder path and the name of the map at the very end. So before we wrap this video up, we're going to test this game in a packaged build. So here's my project, and I'm going to right-click here and create a new folder called Build. And this build folder can be used when we package game projects. And we're going to do that right now. So let's go to Platforms. I'm on a Windows machine, so Windows and Package Project. And it's asking me where it should send that package project. I'm going to select my newly created build folder and click Select Folder. I can click my output log to see the progress as we build this project. So once my packaging is complete, I can go back to my build folder, and now I see a Windows folder. And inside, here's my packaged game project. It's this executable blaster.exe. Now we need all the other folders that package with it, so don't delete anything here. And we can run this game project by double-clicking blaster.exe. And we open up to our game startup map with the widget blueprint here, and we see host and join. Now, this plugin uses Steam, so in order to host or join a session, Steam needs to be running on our machine. So here's the Steam client, and when I test this project with two different machines, I need two different Steam accounts, one logged in on each machine. And in order to find each other's game session, we need to both connect to the same Steam region. So we can go to Steam and Settings and click Downloads, and I have my download region set to US Phoenix. So if I package this project and stick it on another machine, I need that other machine to have its own unique Steam account logged in, and its download region should be set to the same region as my machine, US Phoenix. I'm going to click OK and close this. So we now have our multiplayer sessions subsystem plugin on our new project. And we're going to use this frequently throughout this course to test our multiplayer game and make sure it works as expected when playing across the internet through Steam sessions. So in this lecture, we created our game project and we added the menu system plugin. Now we have a menu widget in our game startup map, and we're going to be using this plugin throughout the course to connect two machines playing our game across the Steam network. Awesome job! We're now ready to start actually making this game so we can have something to test across the network. I'll see you in the next lecture.